Hi, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About This. My guest today is Carol Muleta. Carol is actually a parenting and strategist consultant, I must say. It's the same thing, right?
Strategist and consultant.
Strategist consultant. She created the Parenting 411, a portal where she engages parents and awakens the joy in their journey with her fresh approach to addressing challenging behavior, building strong family connections, and fostering children success in school and in life. Welcome to the podcast, Carol. Nice to have you on the platform.
Thank you for having
Yeah, I was so excited to talk about parenting because I think this is a really important discussion,
me. Hmm.
especially in the era that we're living in today when it comes down to parenting.
Hmm.
It's just so much going on as far as like children having so much freedom and access, especially to like social media, and they're able to see so much stuff that we wasn't able to see when we were coming up as kids. We didn't have so
Sure.
much access to so much violence and a lot of the things that we see on in this new technology era that we're in. My first question I want to ask you though is what are some effective strategies for managing screen time for children?
Well, for managing screen time, you really want to set some boundaries on it, some time frames of when you're going to allow them to be on the screens. But more than that, you've got to step back and really have a conversation with your children and find out what they want to do, why they want to go there, because they do have some goals. And then in this increasingly connected time that we're in, particularly through electronics, part of their social life is associated with that as well. So you've got to be fair and try to figure out what it is they're trying to do, and at the same time balance it with your concerns for
Mm.
privacy, for safety, for mental well-being, and all of that. So I have found in talking with parents and children about technology, there are a few things that they want to do. They
Mhm.
first of all want to be connected, the same way we might have been connected in our neighborhoods, playing outside, doing those things. There's that piece about it.
Right.
They also want to stay informed about what's going on in the world with their friends. So there's that piece. They just want to learn, and they also just want to learn. We would
Mhm.
learn about areas that are interesting to them. And so, how can we help them do that within a reasonable time frame so that it doesn't cut into their own social and emotional development, time with family, and those other types of important life tasks and skills as well, and then
Mhm.
balance that. And so decide as a family how much time is reasonable, whether it's per day or per week, and set some ground rules about those, and also talk about some contingencies about what happens when those rules are broken in
Mhm.
terms of whether they lose privileges with the device, also making sure schoolwork is done, all of that. They need to understand that with that privilege comes responsibility.
Yeah. Uh, In your opinion, what age do you think children should have a cell phone?
A cell phone, I think, really comes into play when there is an actual need for it. I don't believe that there's a particular age that you decide that now they should have one. If your children are in elementary school and you are, aside from them being in school, they're with you a lot of time. They're not going a lot of places without you. I don't think there's a real need for it. I think you really have to let your life dictate. Like, for example, with our children, when They went to middle school. We have twins,
Mm-hmm.
and they were going to separate schools.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought that it was important because one was going to go across the state line. I mean, we're right in the DC metro area, but there's DC, Virginia, Maryland. And so
Mm-hmm.
one was going to be going over into crossing state lines on a school bus.
Right.
And so we felt like, okay, it might be important for us to know if there's a school bus breakdown or anything that any other type of emergency. It might be good for us to be connected in that way. So they got a
Right.
phone. Had that not happened, they wouldn't have gotten a phone that year. And even when they did get the phone, smartphones were just emerging. But I
Mm-hmm.
like to say that what we gave them was a dumb phone. They got a flip phone because
Okay.
all it was for was making the phone calls.
Right.
They did not have any need to be on any social media platforms. So I really feel that parents should not um, feel compelled to give their children phones just because of peer pressure and all of that. Start with the need. Do they need one? What will they be doing with it? And
Right.
then go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. That is important. You need to know what they, it all depends on, I guess, the situation, like you said.
Yeah,
And,
and I
and
mean, when you think about it, that's how we make decisions about all kinds of things. I mean,
yeah.
when can your children what can your children watch on TV? When can they go away to summer camp? You decide those things based on your child's readiness. You
Yeah.
don't do it because uh, well, I hope not. You're not doing it because your friends are doing it or your pediatrician told you it's time to send your child to summer camp. If your child's not ready, doesn't know how to keep up with their things, they don't need
Mm-hmm.
to be going away. They need to practice those skills first. And that's the same way with technology. We should not let technology take over our lives and dictate what we're going to do.
Yes, I certainly agree with that. Now, how can parents instill a sense of responsibility and independence in their children?
That starts with really involving them in what's going on in the household. Like they should have a job. Everybody in the family should have a job and rotate the jobs because you get tired of doing the same thing all the time, but give them responsibility for something in the house that really makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes without saying that they should be responsible for their toys, their things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But give them responsibility for something that sort of affects the whole family. Like they should pitch in with getting dinner ready, or they should set the table. Like so starting off when you're starting off young, maybe they
Right.
should set the table, they should clear the table, they should help clean up the kitchen, those kinds of things, and also help them to be responsible again for tasks that affect them personally, like teaching them how to do their laundry when they're younger.
Yeah.
And you can do it in stages. They may not be able to handle the whole job
Right.
when they're 5 years old, but they can start.
Right.
They can do part of it or do it in stages, but put them to work. That's how people learn responsibility, is
Mm.
learning how to do things, learning how to do things for others. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're interconnected that way, then you start to see how what you do helps other people. And when you slack off on your job, how you affect other people and
Mm.
how you're affected. Say, for example, if the person who's assigned to wash dishes for that week doesn't wash dishes and it's time for dinner and you don't have enough forks for everybody, you feel that.
Right.
And so that's a good way for us to learn responsibility. It's like when if I don't do my part, then I'm going to make life less less pleasant
Yeah.
for other people.
Yeah. And it helps us prepare our kids for the real world, when they get out
Absolutely.
there on their own, because, a lot of children I've come across don't know how to do their own laundry. You'd be surprised, and don't know how to cook. You know,
Right.
so it's good to, like you said, it is really good to prepare them at an early age, how to be responsible. you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
not always feel like they had their, always got their hand out constantly. Yeah,
Right, right. And it builds confidence in them as well
right.
because it may feel good sometimes with parents. They just want to do everything for their children and or they'll say, "Oh, they'll have plenty of time to learn that. For right now, I'm going to do it." But they're really it feels good to be
Mm,
needed as parents. I know that's part of it, but our
right,
children will always need us. They're just going to need us in different ways as they get
right.
older. And of course, for children, yeah, in the moment, sometimes it feels good to have people catering to your needs and things, but over time, it starts to make them feel helpless,
Mm-hmm.
uh, not useful, and frankly, just not skilled because they're going to get into situations. They're going to come to places where parents are not around to do
Mm-hmm.
things for them, and they're going to realize, I don't know how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to go to the post office, for example, and mail a letter, or I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to speak to an adult to get help for something or to get information because my mom or dad is always around doing the talking for me. So
Mm-hmm.
it really is not a very good feeling. And we as adults can relate to that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how we wouldn't like to show up at a place and not know, like even just going to the theater or something, and you don't know where to buy your tickets, or you don't know where, if you paid for your tickets, you don't know where to pick them up,
Mm-hmm.
where to pick them up. You don't know where to sit.
Mm.
All of that. And so imagine children constantly walking into situations that they're not prepared for. It's an uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah, 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 because you can cripple your children, you know what I mean? By
Absolutely.
constantly, constantly, even in times when they find themselves in trouble. A lot of
Yes.
times we, as parents, we have to, from my opinion, we have to make them be responsible for their actions, instead of constantly bailing them out of situations. They have to be responsible for what they've done, because some kids will feel like it's okay to just do things to people, like
Absolutely.
bullying and all kinds of things. So that's very
Absolutely.
important.
Yes, I like to say that it's just good for them to sit with what they've done, and it's not for the parent to point the finger, I told you so, that's what you deserve, and whatever. I mean, it's okay to say, listen, I understand this is an uncomfortable feeling, and
Hmm.
help them think about what they're going to do to get out of the situation. Like, what do you think you can do
Right.
to make this right? Like if they've harmed another person or whatever, um, help them to figure out, brainstorm some ideas for how to get out of the situation they're in. And when
Hmm.
you do that, you're raising a problem solver,
Yep.
not just a victim, but a problem solver.
Hmm.
And I think that also improves behavior when they have that feeling that everything's not going to go my way all the time. I'm going to make some mistakes, but just that idea and that track record, if you do this regularly with them, if you really give them opportunities to experience the consequences, they'll feel like, well, I got out of that situation. Let
Hmm.
me, I'm sure I can figure out a way to make this better or how I can move past because that's really about resilience and it's a muscle. You've got
Hmm.
to work it. You've got to work it. And you just don't all of a sudden at age 13 become resilient and
Right.
courageous. You have to
Right.
build courage and build resilience.
Yes, that's true. I agree with that. What are some ways to promote healthy eating habits in kids? Because I think that's a big issue when it comes down to how we train our children to eat
Hmm.
properly at an early age,
Hmm.
uh, like healthy stuff. You have a lot of young children that I see are very obese at a really young age.
Hmm.
And do you think we should really tackle that problem at a really, at the beginning of their early
Hmm.
stages of life as a parent?
I definitely do because bad habits can be hard to
To break.
to
Yeah.
hard to break. And
Hmm.
so first of all, be a good role model as parents. I mean, in terms of what they see you eating, and make sure that there's plenty of fruit and vegetables in the house. And I'm not saying that they'll never have cake, they'll never have cookies, but make it uh, for an occasion,
Right.
not have it be something that you do every day. And listen, parents, you all have the purse strings. You don't have to, you buy the food, just don't bring a lot of that unhealthy food into the house. Another thing is to involve your children in planning the meal for the week
Mm.
and make sure that you have some things in there that they like, right?
Right.
And then get them involved in helping prepare it. Because if they have had a hand in helping get that food on the table, they're going to be a little more likely to eat it. Like even with little children, you can
Mm.
start helping them to tear up lettuce. Like even if that's kind of the only thing they're able to do at that particular age, just after you clean, show them how you clean the lettuce. You can do that together, but have them tear up the lettuce. And then
Hmm.
as they get a little older, maybe 5, they even have utensils. They're for little chefs, really.
Hmm.
And they don't have sharp edges, but that they can cut things with it. They can then graduate to cutting the lettuce or
Hmm.
cutting pieces of fruit and things like that. But get them involved in it,
Hmm.
and that is another way as well. And just introduce them to a wide variety of fruits and vegetables and prepare it in interesting ways.
Hmm.
And you'd be surprised after, because I experienced this myself when I really changed the way I was eating, that after you cut out all of the sweets and processed foods and start eating more fruit tastes different.
It does.
You really start to taste the essence of the fruit. But
That is
as
so true.
long as you are continuing to eat processed foods with high fructose corn syrup in it, and sugar is in a lot of foods. If you
Hmm.
check the ingredients, it's in salad dressing, it's in things that you wouldn't necessarily think. And so when you really cleanse your palate and get that sugar out of your daily diet, you start to taste vegetables differently and fruit differently.
Hmm.
Just so it really is worth it to start young, because really having to break those habits later on, it just can be so hard.
Yeah, it is. And I realized that as an adult, like you're right about what you're saying about your palate. It starts to, after a while, when you start cutting out all those sugars and
Mhm,
that's the salt and because like you said, we don't realize how much salt and sugar is already in the processed food. And
mhm,
then we add more sugar on top of what's
mhm,
already in there. Like for me, I had this conversation with Blackamore Hampton, and we was just talking about how when you cut things out, how food starts to taste better. And
mhm,
and how you start to taste salt and sugars, and when you go out to like family events or picnics or cookouts and you
mhm,
eat something and you be like, oh my God, this is so salty. And that's because you cut all your salt out of your system. And
mhm,
and the fruit, like you said, fruit starts to taste better. I noticed that
mhm,
myself once I started
mhm,
cutting back on a lot of things. And I had to cut back basically for
mhm,
health reasons, for high
mhm.
blood pressure. So you have to cut those things out after a
Absolutely.
while. So
Mhm.
how can parents handle siblings rivalry and foster a positive sibling relationships?
Mhm. Well, first of all, recognize that some of that is going to happen. It's
Mm-hmm.
just even developmentally, that's the nature of being in a family.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you promote respect and and also boundaries in terms of the types of behavior that you're going to accept, that you're going to tolerate in your family overall. But they're
Mm-hmm.
also create opportunities for them to work together
Mm-hmm.
on things. Like it could even be working together on the household jobs that I talked about earlier, like
Yeah.
coming together. Something else that is also that was also very helpful, and I teach it to parents as well, is having a regular family meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when you say meeting, professionally and personally, we usually think, okay, there's something going on. We've got to
Right.
deal with.
Yeah.
But actually, it's just the opposite, especially to start off. I recommend having a family meeting every week and really just starting off, everyone going around the table and talking about something positive about each family member, something that you appreciate about each family member. And and then have and planning a family activity afterward,
Mm-hmm.
and then do that for probably 3 months, just that way. Like, don't bring any issues to this meeting. Just
Mm-hmm.
get in the habit of making those observations about what each family member is doing. And when children are little, it can just be, sometimes it's kind of funny. It's not kind of some of the things that they come up with, but and then if the parents model it as well, like, to for dad, thank you so much for taking the boys to baseball practice. That
Mm-hmm.
that was very helpful. And then for thank you for reading with your brother, or thank you for taking the trash out,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is. Or I noticed, like, say you have a lot of sibling rivalry, but you noticed a time when they were working together on the
Mm-hmm.
Legos. Um, Thank you for working with your brother on your Lego, that Lego tower. It was really creative how you all put that together and it didn't fall down,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But do those kinds of things, because when you realize that you're going to be coming to this meeting every Sunday or whatever it was, that's when we met,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to need to come up with something about uh, your family members. You start to look at your family members a little differently, and guess what? You want them to be able to say something about you too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way to get your all of the family members to start looking at each other a little bit differently, and then uh, just do things with them together.
Mm-hmm.
As a family, definitely family activities, and those things can kind of help as well. But
Mm-hmm.
when those arguments do come up, give them the skills for expressing themselves. Like, when you took my AirPods
Mm-hmm.
without my permission, I felt disrespected. When I went in my room, I wanted to use my AirPods. I went in my room and they weren't where I usually kept them. That I had to start looking all over the place for them. I lost a lot of time. I wasted a lot of time looking for them, and here you were with them. You didn't tell me you were using them, and I just feel like it wasn't respectful for you to take my things without asking.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other person can speak and say, well, I just didn't think you would mind. I mean, I just was only going to use them for a few minutes, and then I ended up on listening to whatever longer. I just got caught up, lost track of time. I'm sorry. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They learn how to
Yeah.
apologize to each other, but learn how what they do, as I said earlier, affects somebody else. And then you kind of learn something different. You learn something about the other one, because the child that has the AirPods, now he learns that uh his brother likes listening to certain types of music and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. He might think, well, hey, maybe I'll put my money together and get him his own set of AirPods for his birthday or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't know.
Right.
So you just learn more, give them opportunities to learn more about each other, and start learning how to solve some of their problems on their own.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true because I think we're lacking a lot of that today when it comes to parenting. Another thing I think we lack is sitting back in the day, I remember when I was um coming up, we
Mhm.
used to sit at the table and have conversations with one another. And this was before technology, before cell phones and all this kind of stuff. And we used to talk about, each other's, how each other's days went and stuff
Right.
like that. Like, everybody grew up differently and they had different ways of parenting. Um, but a lot of that is missing today. And we don't even sit at the table with each other and have dinner anymore. Now people make their plates and they go wherever they want to go and take their plates with them or whatever. But I think we missing that when it comes to, having communicating with our children and our families, just having communications. And we lost, and that's one of the things with technology. We lost a lot of that communication.
Right.
Everybody wants to text nowadays. Nobody wants to call each other, and then they get mad when you don't get the text back. And I'm like, wait a minute, you should have called me. I don't even look at my texts. Sometimes I don't even look at my texts for 2, 3 days, and people be mad. They be like, I done text you 4 days ago. Why didn't
Mhm.
you call? If it was important, why didn't you call me? So
Right.
I think we missing a lot of communication with
And
one
we
another.
Right. And we just have to be intentional about it,
Mm-hmm.
that you are going to sit down and have dinner. I know that certainly as the children get older, say in elementary school on up, really, they start to get involved with different after school activities, sports, and there's a lot going on. I think there needs to be a family calendar so
Mm-hmm.
that everybody sort of knows where each other will be.
Mm-hmm.
And that can even be, I think there should be a physical one, but I also think it's okay. This is where technology can help. There can
Right.
be a Google where everybody can see through Google, for example. And there
Mhm.
are other apps as well for
Right.
this purpose. But you can see where everybody's going to be. And every week, figure out those days when we can have everybody around and plan on eating dinner
Mm-hmm.
together those days. And this business of going all over the house eating
Mm-hmm.
for a whole lot of other reasons,
Right.
including cleanliness, you don't want
Right.
to have that happening.
Yeah.
But everybody should sit down. The devices need to be turned off and just have a conversation
Mm-hmm.
and find out what, because you learn so much about what's on your children's minds.
Exactly.
They learn how to speak up for themselves, for their ideas.
Mm-hmm.
They learn how to defend their ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that was something that I really, really was so grateful for, that we were able to spend most of our nights, certainly, if not, well, really, definitely through high school. It was most nights that all four of us,
Mm-hmm.
were able to sit down together and eat. And we could talk about what was going on in the world. The
Mm-hmm.
children learned things. We learned from them. They talked about their friends, what their friends were up to, what was going on at school.
Right.
And without them even realizing it, you're learning about a lot about what's going on in their heads, in their hearts. You learn about
Mm-hmm.
what they care about as
Mm-hmm.
well. So that's really a valuable time to spend with your family. It has a major impact on how connected you all feel.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true. And that all intertwines with mental health as well, because, a lot of kids are feel dismissed and that they're not getting that attention, and parents aren't communicating with their kids, and then that's when the kids start to go looking for all that attention
Elsewhere.
and elsewhere in the wrong
Hmm.
places, and then they
Hmm.
turn out to do things that they shouldn't be doing. So
Hmm.
that is important. I think that's really important. I think today we need to get back to that. Like you having starting to sit down at the table, having communications, putting the devices away and getting to know what's on each other's mind.
Hmm.
And it gives us it's a place where people can kids can express themselves, about, like you
Hmm.
said, what's going on in their life. Because
Hmm.
a lot of parents don't even know what's going on in their kids' life. It's sad, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
When coming up I grew up in the hood, and
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
see And that's because their parents, I guess it was passed down from one generation to the next. That could be
Hmm.
another thing too. Um,
Right. And some parents, even if it's not the devices, I mean, to be fair to some parents, they are sometimes they're working multiple jobs, things like
yeah,
that. And they're like, listen, I'm keeping the roof over everybody's heads, the lights are
yeah,
on, food's on the table. That's like really the best I can do.
yeah.
And um, yet it really does, you really have to figure out how to make that time and be intentional because those 18 years go by very quickly. Now
They
you're a
do.
parent as long as you have a child, so parenting doesn't stop after 18, but it's during those years when they're most likely to be under your roof most of the time
Mm-hmm.
that you can really have that influence. So I really encourage even those parents who feel like they don't have enough time, just start off with making sure definitely every Sunday, say for
Mm-hmm.
example,
Yeah.
that we're definitely going to sit down for Sunday dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And then add on the days because you want to do more than one day if you can. And gradually add on more days that you as a family are definitely going to sit down
Mm-hmm.
and eat together because like I said, those 18 years go by so quickly and it's really it pays real dividends. I mean, because it's powerful when children feel like they can be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't be heard at home, where can you be heard?
That's
And you
true.
want them to have the courage and have the communication skills
Mm-hmm.
to advocate for themselves when they go to school, um, be able to have that conversation with a teacher if they aren't understanding their schoolwork, they need extra help.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps if they are being bullied, if they are having a problem with another student, to be able to speak up about that to their teacher and get the help that they need.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's good practice for later in life, say when they go to college or when they start a job,
Mm-hmm.
knowing how to communicate
Right.
and express themselves. That really starts at home.
Yeah, that's true. It might sound cliche, but everything starts at home.
Yes.
It starts at home. As children, you become a reflection of what you see in your own household. No
Hmm.
matter what you see on the outside, even
Right.
when it comes to athletes or, stars or whatever, I
Hmm.
believe that reflection starts from, what you see in a home
Hmm.
at an
Hmm.
early age. Um,
Definitely.
so how important is it to open communication in parent-child relationships, and how can parents facilitate that?
It's very important. I mean, communication is just really how we get anything done in the world.
Right.
And so you really need to consider your home the laboratory. That's the place where your children can practice
Mm-hmm.
communicating. It's also important for children to see you not only as the leader of the family. Yes, you decide what's the rules. You have the money, so you decide what's going to be purchased, what the house is going to be like. They also need to recognize you as a person as well. You have feelings, you have interests, you have concerns. They need to buy into you as a person as well, because that's what they'll be able to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps when they're away from you and they're tempted, some friends want them to do something that really goes against your family's values, they can remember that because you communicated that to them. You
Mm-hmm.
talked about what your hopes and dreams were for them. You talked about what life was like when you were a child, things
Mm-hmm.
that your dreams, things that you always wanted to do. It really humanizes you, for lack of a better word, but really, makes helps them to see you as more than just the boss that tells me what to do. Do this, do
Mm-hmm.
that, don't do
An
that.
authoritarian figure. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And they see you as a real person that they have a connection with, and start as early as you can. But if you kind of miss the boat in the earlier years, it's never too late to be the parent you want to be. So
Mm-hmm.
start where you are, but absolutely communicate with them because, as I said, they want to know that the people that are supposed to love them the most understand them and care about what they have to say, because that's also a level of respect.
Right.
And when they are accustomed to being treated with respect, when
Mm-hmm.
they go out in the world at school or in the community or as they get older in personal relationships, they know what respect looks like, and it'll
Mm-hmm.
be a red flag when they feel disrespected. And
Mm.
so you want them to know what healthy relationships look like. So that's why it's so important. So I feel like every parent should strive to set aside regular one-on-one time with their children.
Mm-hmm.
When your children are younger, that time can be as little as 15 minutes. But
Mm-hmm.
that's when the phone is turned off, everybody else in the family is doing their own thing. You're
Mm-hmm.
just relating one on one with them and do it regularly so they can look forward to it. So,
Right.
every day at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be able to I'm going to have moms or dads a 100% undivided attention. And they can talk about what they want, or you're going to play a game with them. It's going to be the game that they want to play. It's not going to be anything dictated by mom or dad, but you're going to
Mm.
spend that time with them. And then you add time onto it as they get older. I mean, the younger ones, they have a shorter attention span, so
Mm.
you won't be able to tie them up as long. But
Right.
then, and you can do it more often with them because they don't have as much going on yet. But then when they get a little older, say middle school, then it could be once a week. But it's like a date, it's like an appointment with
Mm.
mom or dad that they can count on. They're going to be able to talk with you. You're going to be able to just connect. You might be playing a game, you might be building a puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But they know that they're going to be able to talk with you one on one, and a lot of things will come out.
Mm-hmm.
Without you having to interrogate them, they'll just start throwing things out, and you'll be like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know he felt that way about this," or "I didn't know he was interested in learning about that."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I call it special time, but you can have whatever name that you want to have for it. But I think that's important right all the way up through, when they move out of your house,
Yeah.
whether it's for a job or for college or whatever it is. But it's very important. And when you start when they're young, what's nice about that is that when they become teens, they're already accustomed to it. They won't start feeling like, oh, she just wants to talk to me because she wants to know my business. She
Mm.
thinks she doesn't trust me, or they think I'm doing the wrong thing. That's the only reason why they want to spend time together. But if you've
Mm.
already been doing it,
Mm-hmm.
then it's just normal to them. And they're
Mm-hmm.
already comfortable talking to you. I mean, doesn't mean that, don't get me wrong, doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're not going to butt heads. I mean,
Yeah.
again, that's also developmental. That's also them trying to kind of separate,
Yeah. Yeah.
which you want, which you
Mm-hmm.
do want, but it can be a bumpy road getting there. But if you have been communicating and connecting, you have at least a foundation. And
Mm-hmm.
again, they're not going to always agree with everything, agree with your rules and things like that, but at least they'll have something to hold on to. They know that you're looking out for their well-being. They know you mean well. They might not like you in the moment, but they know,
Yeah.
you know, they know you're coming from a place of love because you have that history together.
Yeah. That's yeah, me and my oldest granddaughter, we communicate a lot.
That's good.
She lived with me for some
Mhm.
years, and and I like the fact that like you said, they open up and they tell you things, and things what's on their mind,
Mhm.
and they feel like they're somebody really cares when you're giving them that attention,
Mhm.
rather than letting them be dismissed, you
Yes.
know, especially with technology. A lot of times the kids are on their phone all day long,
Mhm.
and they're not having communications, um, with their parents, or they're
Mhm.
not even being active or going outside. I mean, when we were coming up, we were outside. We
Oh,
was
yes.
playing hopscotch, or we were playing jacks or double dutch, or
Yes. Yes.
or we were going to the skating ring, or we
Hmm.
was doing a lot of things as kids. And today I feel sad. I feel so sorry for kids today because they're missing out on so much
They
today.
are. They
You know.
are. And I think some of that has to do with the way we have things set up. I mean, things are so competitive with school and getting into the right school,
Mhm.
and and we have all these requirements of them that parents just feel like they have to be scheduled for all of these programs, and
Mhm.
if it's sports all the time and all of that, and we kind of need to let go of some of that, or parents just need to make the decision. Yep, I know you like sports, or I know you like this, and there's some other things we want you to be well rounded, and there's some other things we want you to know how to do too.
Mhm.
And or we also think it's important for us to do things as a family uh,
Mhm.
as well. And so you have to really be intentional about it, because you will get caught up, whether it's technology or
Mhm.
just what society says is important,
Right.
and you have to decide how that's going to line up with what you think is important for your family and your children.
That's true. That is true. How important is well, let me take it to this question. What are some effective discipline strategies that promote learning and growth?
Hmm. Well, at different stages, it's very important to communication that we talked about earlier is important at every level.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you kind of operate a little differently at different levels. With younger children, like the really young,
Mm-hmm.
you're redirecting them. Like I'm talking about the toddlers and
Mm-hmm.
all. That's a sort of discipline. You're redirecting them away from things that they might be getting into in the house or doing, and but you're also communicating with them, like with, hitting and whatever. Tell them, touch softly, or
Mm-hmm.
or that hurts, or
Mm-hmm.
ouch. Like say, give them that feedback when they're hitting or slapping or scratching, things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
then give them boundaries. It's kind of the way that you talk with them about things. Like if you want to
Mm-hmm.
play with the ball, you can take it outside. If you're going to
Right.
stay inside, you need to play with these games.
Mm-hmm.
Your choice. You can go outside or you can do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really giving them information. That's setting boundaries for them. Um,
Right.
Also, and then when you're communicating with them, give, instead of everything being no or negative,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell them what the limits are or what the boundaries are. So, for example, if they want to go play outside with their friends, but uh, their toys and shoes are all over the floor. It's like, well, when after everything is cleaned up here, then you can go
Mm-hmm.
outside.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's really up to them. Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
I do want to go outside, so let me clean up.
Right. Especially if they
So
right. If they
yeah, whereas before, maybe with a more authoritarian approach, when you're angry because all the stuff is on the floor. No, you can't go out because look at this mess.
right.
So, but you're not getting the mess cleaned up either.
Right.
So, you're like, you can go outside, but you need to clean this up. So a lot of it has to do with giving them the lay of the land. Like these are the boundaries. This is what you can do. And in
Mm-hmm.
terms of communicating with each other, making sure that it's out of respect.
Mm-hmm.
And and then also a lot of it has to do with parents recognizing the developmental stages of
Mm-hmm.
children. So there's going to be a period where, when the little ones, everything's mine, 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 and no, no, no.
Right.
So recognize that. I mean, say, listen, I know that you you don't want to leave the playground, like for little kids.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're having a lot of fun, but we have 5 more minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then follow through on what you say. That's another thing.
Yeah.
And but let's let them know that you hear them, and this is what needs to happen right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have different ways we can get there, but this is where we're going.
Right.
This is the behavior we're looking for, or this is what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a choice, give them a choice. If there's not a choice, tell them there's not a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But do practice giving them choices in some things, because when they know they have a choice and have some say in some things, they will be more cooperative in those situations where there's only one way to do this, and you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to do it my way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't really want to be too demanding on your children or be too,
It's not when you don't
yeah.
have to be. If there is
Yeah.
more than one way, like for example, as I said, I have twin sons, and so they had very different personalities and the way they worked and stuff. And so when
Mm-hmm.
we came home, when they came home from school, one son had a lot of energy. He just needed to burn off.
Right.
So it was like, all right, um, you can go outside and play, out in the backyard, do whatever. But at 4 o'clock, you need to be sitting here doing your homework.
Mm-hmm.
And don't and that includes running around plus getting a snack if you want it. But at 4 o'clock, you need to be sitting here doing your homework.
Mm-hmm.
My other son had a different personality. He liked to come in and get started right away.
Yeah.
I mean, but the requirement was get the homework done.
Right.
You can do it in the order that you want to get it. You can get that
Mm-hmm.
other stuff done in the order that you want to get it done,
Mm-hmm.
but that homework needs to be done. You either need to be starting at 4 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
or you can start before. But that was kind of the requirement,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we got things done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example of something that didn't have to be done one specific way. But
Right.
then there's some things that, because of safety or
Mm-hmm.
other things, you can only do it one way.
Right.
So when you can give them a choice, let them have choices, and then
Yeah.
allow them. And then I will also add to that. Sometimes when our children are younger, they're making a choice, and I'm not talking about one where their safety or their health would be at stake,
Mm-hmm.
but they make a choice, and it's foolish.
Right.
It's something they shouldn't do. Like maybe it's something they want to spend their birthday money on. It's
Right.
not a lot of money, but you see it's a mistake, but
Uh-huh.
let them make it. Let them
Right.
make it, because you'd much rather have them buy something and regret it later when they're 10
Right.
than when they're 17,
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
it's
that's
more
true.
money and may have more consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So allow them to experience the consequences of their actions. And then sometimes they're going to make good choices, and let
Mm-hmm.
them experience that as well, because that's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
When they've made a good choice about whether it's their behavior, something they bought, something they decided to do. Let them make sure they connect the dots with that as well, so they can repeat that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's yeah. Yeah. How can you help your child develop a growth mindset?
A lot of
Yeah.
that has to do with language, how they speak about things, and how you teach them to speak about things.
Mm-hmm.
So especially with younger children, they focus on what they don't know how to do. They
Right.
Even as they're learning things, they are off to the next thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
starting young, when they say they learn how to tie their shoes, and that can take a little while to master that, whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
they know how to do that, but then the next thing, they get that, and then the next thing, they're not able to read as well as they want to, or whatever, and they're focusing on that,
Mm-hmm.
when that was a big deal, them learning how to tie their shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So when they do, remind them of that. Like, and talk about that. Like, it's really helpful that you're able to get your shoes on quickly, because now we can get out the door, we can get moving. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really helpful. And then maybe if they have a younger sister or brother, you know, tie their shoes for them until they get ready to learn. And so it's like,
Right.
wow, that's helpful. Now we're ready to go. We can go do whatever, but remind them of that. And
Mm-hmm.
especially when they start complaining about something that they don't know how to do, you can say, remember when you were having a hard time remembering your math facts, like addition or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then you got it. So now we're on to multiplication. And
Mm-hmm.
multiplication is really like fast adding, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so now you can start to memorize these facts,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll move on to something else. But remind them of things that they didn't know how to do before, but they did learn how to do them. And
Right.
so, and then when they speak about, well, I don't know how to ride a bike, whatever, it's like, you don't know how to ride a bike yet.
Yet. Right.
Okay. And then as they're in the process, like say you are in the process of teaching them how to do something like riding a bike and they haven't quite gotten it, it's like, I am learning to ride a
Mm-hmm.
bike. It's not, I can't ride a bike. It's, I'm learning to ride a bike.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another way to help them cultivate a growth mindset is to always be teaching them things.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lots of charts online for ages and stages of development of things that children should know how to do at this age or that age. And
Mm-hmm.
again, you don't have to take it as a hard rule. You apply it, you meet your child where your child is, but start teaching them things like around the house. Teach your child, make sure your child knows. We talked about laundry, but
Right.
how to iron their clothes,
Right.
how to use the vacuum cleaner, how
Mm-hmm.
to and then outside of your house, how to go to the post office and mail a letter, like that whole transaction, interacting with them. How does that work? How to address a letter? Do you know,
Right.
I am finding that some people don't even know how to properly address a letter, like
Mm.
that the return address goes here,
Right.
and all of the
Yeah.
pieces, like you need to include the zip code or it might come back,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things, but always teach them things, because not only are you giving them valuable skills that they're going to use,
Mm-hmm.
it's also confidence. And I talked
Yes.
about that before, about when
That,
you
and that's
encounter
important.
situations, it's like, oh, I know how to do this. I
Mm-hmm.
know, yeah, I got this,
Right.
right? So that is how you can cultivate that growth mindset, by constantly exposing them to opportunities where they've got to grow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do they still have bring your children to work day? I don't know.
I believe they do. And it's
They
because
do?
they remember they used to have take our daughters to work. And
Right.
then people felt like, well, wait a minute, what about the son? So they still do that. They
Oh, they
still do
do
that.
still do
And
that?
I definitely think something like that is a good
Yeah.
idea as well. But pretty always try to have your child pushing the envelope. Like now
Mm-hmm.
they know how to do this one thing, let's explore something else. Give them that continuous learning mindset,
Mm-hmm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
they can be lifelong learners. And they should also see mom and dad learning new things too,
Yeah.
because so that they don't feel like adulthood is like the end, like everything. By the time you reach that, everything,
Mm-hmm.
which is impossible.
Right.
So always
Yeah.
show them that you're curious, that you're always
Mm-hmm.
trying to improve yourself and learn
Yeah.
something new as well.
Now, what could you say to parents who feel guilty about not being able to give their children the proper upbringing? Because I know at one point I used to have that guilt to where I used to feel like, man, I wish I could have been a better parent.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to forgive myself because I had to think about the fact that there were some things that I wasn't taught,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
as a parent, coming from, previous generations. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
times you're not taught certain things, so you don't teach your children certain things, and they get lost in life because there's a lot of things they don't know. Like, for instance, we weren't taught in school finances, or
Mm-hmm.
how to open up a bank account, and
Mm-hmm.
things that we really need to know in today's life, how to
Mm-hmm.
invest money.
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature. What could you say to parents who feel guilty about not being able to have that sort of teaching and not being able to teach it to their own children?
All I would say is absolutely do the best with what you have. But when you notice that there is something that is lacking that you would love for your child to know, but you aren't equipped to do it, um, learn about it yourself, or even seek places where they can get that particular skill. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you want them to learn it quickly or
Yeah.
whatever. And this may even come from your village. You may have extended family. Like maybe you didn't learn that, but you noticed that, Uncle Tim is really good with finances or whatever, or I noticed what he's doing with his children. I wonder if he could talk to my kids or
Right.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And but like I said, it definitely if it's something that you didn't learn, learn it. And if it's not an emergency kind of a situation, learn it together. Use it as an opportunity to learn together. And
Mm-hmm.
and even if you have, say, a child that's, late teens, young adult, and you realize, just be honest. Hey, listen, I see you're struggling with um, interviewing, or I see you're struggling with, managing your finances. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't do my best there because I didn't know a lot about it, and I didn't teach you about it, and I'm sorry about that. But
Yeah.
let's take a look at this. I found this book, or
Mm-hmm.
I know this person that could probably help you, and maybe I'd like to learn a little bit too. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to feel guilty, because it's like Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better.
That's true.
So, and what I say when I
Yeah.
talk to parents is, it's never too late to be the parent you want to be.
Yeah. 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 Because oftentimes, especially being a single parent, it's kind of hard,
Hmm.
to be a single parent. Because, like you said earlier, parents spend a lot of their time, trying to keep a roof over the kids' heads, over your
Hmm.
kid's head. And as a parent, sometimes you often find yourself teaching your grandchildren things
Hmm.
that you weren't able to teach your own children,
Right.
because I guess it's a time, because I found myself being like that at one point. I was like, you know what? You know, there's lot of things that I wasn't able to teach my children,
Hmm.
but at least now I can pass some things on to my grandchildren.
Hmm.
And my children are adults now. I have two children, they're both adults.
Right.
And I consider myself to be a pretty good parent.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And because they turned out to be really good children, and I'm
Good.
I'm blessed to say that. But I find myself doing things more with my grandchildren that I wasn't able to do with my own children, being that I had to be a single parent most of their life.
Right. And thank God for that. It's
Yeah,
just that's fine. It's a blessing that you're able to do that.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so don't feel guilty about it, especially when you know that you've done your best.
yeah,
Uh, and listen, most of us out here, that is what we're trying to do. I don't think there are many parents that are out here saying, I don't want the best for my children, and I'm not going to try to help them.
yeah,
So I don't think I think we're doing the best we can,
yeah.
and if you're not, start doing the best you can.
Yeah, yeah, it's never too late. It's
Right.
never
Never
too
too
late.
late.
And my last question I wanted to ask you is, I guess we talked about like listening skills, as far as, because as parents, sometimes we don't listen to our children. Um, and and it goes back to being um trying to be that authoritative figure instead of, because we have to remember that our kids are human beings. They have
Hmm.
feelings, they have questions, and they need to be heard.
Yes. Hmm.
And what could you tell parents who don't have that effective listening skill when it comes down to their children, because we need to hear them too. They don't need to just hear us.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
need to, we need to hear them, and we need to listen to their feelings, because kids can feel dismissed,
Right.
and when they
Mm-hmm.
don't have parents who don't listen to what's going on with them.
Absolutely. I'll say a couple of things. First of all, children long to be known.
Mm-hmm.
And I would maybe even take it a step even further back and say humans long to be known. We're social
Mm-hmm.
beings. It's all about connection with
Yeah.
other people. So that's the first thing. And then I can remember a few years back, I read a book by Rosalind Wiseman. She wrote a book called Queen Bees and Wannabes,
Mm.
and about girls. That was in the beginning when you started hearing about mean girls, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so I went to hear her speak one time, and she said, expect to be changed by what you hear. And when she was talking about going into converse, when you go having conversations with your children, that's not going to happen all the time. Sometimes they
Right.
just talk, 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 and sometimes we're just talking to be talking.
Right.
But be open to the fact that you might be changed by something they say.
Mm.
Don't assume that you know what they're thinking, know what they care about, their kids. I've been there.
Mm.
There's nothing they can't tell me. That is not healthy at all.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely get into that mindset that I might be changed by something they say right
Mm.
now, and,
Mm-hmm.
and and be open to that. And so we've talked, pretty much throughout our conversation about the importance of making space for those conversations, and beyond the direction and all of that we give them about this is what we have to do. We have to get ready for this. We have to go here. We have to go there. But make time for actual just conversation,
Mm.
seeking where you're just seeking to understand,
Mm-hmm.
and then just and that's listening sometimes, not listening to solve the problem, but
Mm.
listening to hear what they're talking about. And then you can even ask, okay, after they've kind of laid out whatever it is, okay, were you just telling me for information, or would you like some ideas? Like
Mm-hmm.
ask them. Ask
Right.
for permission. We hardly ever do that. As soon as they tell us something, we're like, oh, here, this is what you need to do.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, ask them, what kind of conversation is this?
Mm.
Like, you just want to tell me, you just venting, and then, okay, do you want to hear what I'm thinking? Do you want to hear an idea that I might have,
Right.
whatever? And and then and just listen, because you'll really be surprised sometimes when they'll tell you things. I mean, I learned that really early. We were having a birthday party for our sons, and so there were like 20 boys probably at our house. And so, initially they were running around eating snacks and all that, but then we had a magician come.
Mm.
So they were all sitting down, and I was glad because I could take a break for a minute because
Right.
they were being entertained. So one of my sons came over and he was like, "Hey, mom, where's that boy?" And I was like, "What boy? They're all over there." He's like, "No, where's that boy?" I said, and so I did a count of the backs of their heads. And I was like, and the number worked out. I was like, "They're all over there. Please go back over there and enjoy this show before the magician leaves."
Mm-hmm.
And so he went over there for a minute and then he came back. He's like, "Mom, where's that boy?" And I'm like, "What boy are you talking about?" And he said, "The one with the he described his hair." And I was like, "Hmm."
Mm.
Then I looked a little closer. I was like, "My gosh, he's not here." So, I ran up the stairs. I took those stairs two at a time because I like a kid is missing. Like
Right.
somebody's mom dropped their kid off with me and they are missing. And
Right.
anyway, I ran up the basement steps and then ran up the steps. And this little boy had gone up there, had climbed into one of our kids' bunk beds and was under the cover reading a book.
Are you kidding?
Yes. And so of course we brought him down, brought him on back downstairs.
Right.
But I was like, my son was, I'm so glad he was determined. He was like,
Yeah.
I'm telling you somebody's missing.
Right.
And he
Uh,
was really, I'm trying to remember, I think he was probably 8 at the
wow.
most.
Mm.
And
Very
so,
alert.
and very observant. Yes.
Observant. Yeah.
Yes. And
Mhm.
so, that definitely changed the way I listen to him in the future for sure.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, because when what I realized that was that I was counting my other child. So that's why the number always worked out. There were always the right number of boys because I was counting him
Right.
and as one of the friends. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to look at things differently.
Yeah.
And so, with that little bit of information, because he told me about the kid's hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was changed in that moment. I was like, my perspective was changed because
Right.
of that information that he had
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be open to that,
Yeah.
and you can learn so much. I'm continuing. My sons are 24 years old, and they're always teaching me something new.
Yeah. Yeah. My children are too. Both of my children. I have my son's in his 30s and my daughter's in her 30s.
Okay.
And they always, I when I do get with them, they always teaching me something.
Yeah.
Me and my daughter, we get on the phone and she'd be like, Mom, did you see this or did you hear about that? And
Right.
I'm like, nah, I ain't hear about it. Tell me about it. What happened?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And my son, it's funny because your relationship you have with your children is different with each child. You
Yes.
know, my son is almost like I can't even explain our relationship is more like my mom is he don't look at me as you know how some kids don't want their parents to treat them like they're babies anymore even though they're adults.
Hmm.
But me and my son when we get together it's not like that. He's like I'm like the cool mom, you know.
Right.
And when I'm with him and his homeboys or his friends or whatever, sometimes like me and him will go out and he'll take me to these little sports places and we'll sit there and have a couple of beers together and just
Okay.
chat or something like
Hmm.
that. That's the type of uh relationship we have. And then with my daughter is different. We have our our conversations
Hmm.
and she likes to watch a lot of reality
Oh.
reality shows and she'd be like,
Right.
Mom, did you see uh Atlanta Housewives and this girl had what happened to her? I'd be like, no, I ain't see it. I don't watch it. I don't watch it anymore. So she'll try to update me on a lot of things and stuff like that. So yeah, you always have different type of relationship with your each child.
You
And
do. And they see you very differently. I, I,
yeah.
I often said I'm a different mom to
Mm-hmm.
each of them. When they get older and they tell stories about their mom, they might be a little different, even though I'm the same person.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I didn't have different rules for them, but
Mm-hmm.
the way I related to them and like I have different inside jokes with each of them. We
Mm-hmm.
have some that's with the three of us because when my husband was working and I'd be picking them up from school or whatever, we spent a lot of time together, the three of us. So we
Mm-hmm.
have some that are, with the three of us, but then some that are individually. And then don't mix them up because this son doesn't like what you do with that son. And this,
Right. 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 Now,
you
are your
know,
twins identical?
no, they're
Oh, they're no.
fraternal,
Okay,
fraternal.
I have twin grandchildren. My youngest grandchildren
Oh,
are
okay.
twins. My daughter has a boy and a girl,
Okay.
and watching them interact with each other is so cute. I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
the girl, Nala, she's the bossy one. She tells him what to do, and
Mm-hmm.
and she'll go back and she'll tell everything. I'll never forget. She'll tell everything he does. And I remember before they started walking, she started walking first. He was
Okay.
still crawling, and she
Mm.
would take things from him and run because she knew he couldn't walk. So
Oh,
I mean, just watching those two interact is so hilarious. But
isn't that funny?
they are so they're inseparable. They're 7 years old now, and
Oh,
but they're something else. I love watching their relationship, watching them
they are
interact with one another.
fascinating.
Yeah, they
Hmm.
really are. But
Hmm.
Carol, thank you so much for stopping on the platform and sharing all this good information as far as parenting. I'm sure my audience is going to get a lot out of this, especially the young parents out there who
Hmm.
probably need some kind of guidance on parenting or things they probably haven't even learned, or wasn't taught from their parents. So this was a really good episode. Is there any information you want to give out as far as
Sure.
your social media uh
Absolutely.
handles?
Absolutely. They can listen to me or follow me at the Parenting 411 on Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. I have the Parenting 411 podcast. And I'm also offering free copies of my mini motherhood memoir called Mother's Work, Pearls of Wisdom and Gems from My Journey. And they can visit mothersworkthebook.com. That's mothersworkthebook.com.
Oh, thank you so much. And for the audience, make sure you tune in each week for another episode of Let's Talk About This. And don't forget to subscribe. And it don't cost nothing to hit that subscription button now. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next week. And thanks again, Carol, for stopping in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.